There we go. I see some folks starting to pop in here. Hey, Anita.
Hey Steve, how are you?
Good, good. I'm quickly catching some of these returns coming in.
Yeah, are you? I can't wait
Uh,
to hear.
the first thing I saw that made me, oh, there we go. You know what? I think there's a delay. Hold on a second. Hey. Oh boy. Catching some of these returns coming in.
Yeah, are you? I can't wait to hear.
The first thing I saw that made me, oh, there we go. You know what? I think there's a delay. Hold on a second. Okay, how's that? Let's try this.
Okay.
The first thing I saw that made me. Uh-oh. I think I have too many screens open. It'll take a second here. Let's try this.
Okay.
Okay. I think I have too many screens open. It'll take a second here. All right, Anita, can you hear me?
I can.
Let's see if I can figure out this reverb problem. The first thing I saw that was potentially very problematic in this case for Colin is it appears that he lost his ward by about 20 percentage points.
Whoa. Whoa.
Anita,
Not
can you hear
good.
me? Let's see if I can figure out this reverb problem. The first thing I saw that was I'm going to turn one of these off. Potentially very problematic in this case for Colin is it appears that. All right, let's try this. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
So I don't know if you caught that. So quickly getting more results. But one thing I know over the years is that the towns are very much connected, so that if you see somebody falling well below what they probably were their expectations um, in one precinct, it would be unusual if you didn't see that same pattern pop up across the state, or in his case, across the district very quickly, particularly given that it's his home precinct. Um, in contrast, Cindy, who has the same home ward as Colin, won her ward by 24 points, which
Wow.
is what you would expect in her home ward. So I'm trying to confirm if that's a typo because that's a rather extraordinary figure. Yeah, Keene Ward 2 just came in, and Maggie beat Colin 59 to 41% in Ward 2 of Keene. So these numbers are coming in very quickly. In fact, it may be the least dramatic contested race of the night because I think it's going to get called shortly by the AP.
Oh,
Good Landers winning.
Oh, what was that, Jeff?
Sorry, I thought I was on mute.
Oh, no problem. Yeah, and some of these Manchester numbers as they're starting to come in, and Joyce is predictably ringing up. I mean, this is one of Joyce's core advantages, I think, going into the primary, was that she's simply working from the biggest community in the state, so that if she's winning her home turf by similar percentages as Cindy would be winning, say, Greater Concord, it's just a bigger denominator. And there's some early indications that, so she's picking up bigger margins of victory in each ward of Manchester than typically, so far it seems, that Cindy would be picking up in Concord, which means Cindy's going to have to go find votes in neutral territory, which she might. But that's an advantage for Joyce kind of going into the exercise. Some good news for John Kuiper. He won his hometown of Newmarket, actually rather handily. So, and a couple of the wards I've seen in Manchester show John picking up high single digits, which, all things considered, I haven't talked to him about what his expectations were, privately. But I think if John were to end up getting somewhere in the 10% range, which is possible, I think he'd have to consider, that's a pretty good night for him considering where he started. I wonder, it's not clear, at least early on, whose hide those votes might have come out of. It's also not clear whether or not that'll matter, right? If this is a single digit race in either direction, then John's votes could have ended up being awfully important, but it's too early, I think, to say that. One thing is, if any of you, in doing your own sleuthing, especially in your home area, if you have any results from your home area or anywhere else, feel free to put that in the chat. I'm going to start plugging some numbers in. We've created a chart here that I'll fill in. A lot of it I'll probably end up doing during the debate. But if you can, I will share the screen so you can see what I'm doing here. There we go. And if you can see the screen here right now, let me see if our friends on YouTube are seeing this as well. What we've got here is the number of votes that were cast in 2022 in the Democratic state primary, just to provide some idea later in the evening as to what turnout looks like compared to 2 years ago in these various precincts. What percentage of the state vote total that made up 2 years ago to give us some proportionality. And then there are four other races that I'm going to be paying attention to tonight. CD2 Democratic primary, the executive council 2, that's Cindy's executive council district that she is exiting. That's sort of the gerrymandered Democratic one. There's a two-way primary there between Mike Liberty and Karen Leod Hill. And then executive council district 5, which is more or less the southwestern part of the state. Nashua is the most prominent part of it. And that's got, I think, what is a very uncertain result in terms of that primary between Melanie Levesque and Shoshana Kelly. And then one other race we'll take a look at is the race that Becky Whitley, the seat that she vacated to briefly run for Congress. There's been a pretty hotly contested three-way primary there between a state rep, Angela Brennan, Rebecca McWilliams, and Tara Reardon, former state rep, current county commissioner. Three very substantial candidates, and we'll see how that one goes. And those results should come in pretty quickly because most of the district is the city of Concord, and the Concord numbers are coming in. So we should know how that one's going to go pretty quickly, I think. Yeah, we've got Concord Ward 6. Cindy beats Joyce by a margin of about 108 votes. That's not that big compared to the Manchester wards that Joyce is winning with a margin of 2 to 3 times that figure. And then Maggie Goodlander won Ward 6, which is a neighboring ward of Collins' home ward, 296 to 216. So she won that ward outright as well. So that's obviously problematic again for Colin.
Hey, listen, there's those little big things. The problem is sometimes it does shrink. You know, so you just don't know, right? But I always say you gotta stay within yourself until you get to 2 strikes. Don't be swinging at bad pitches until you get to 2 strikes, and then the 2 strikes gotta expand a little.
Oh, I think somebody on here might be watching a Red Sox game at the same time.
Certainly want those calls for your guys. Emerson's 0 for 1 to fly out to left. 36 home runs. That's the most by an Oriole shortstop.
Oh, it's not Syracuse football.
Surpassed
Right, I think somebody's swinging at 2-strike off-speed pitches. I could be wrong.
It was me, obviously. I turned it.
Oh, good. We're only 3 games out of a wild card, which is pretty crazy.
Do you hear? Is that him?
Oh, yeah, that's him. What do you say?
Talking about the Red Sox. That's right.
Oh, yeah.
I unmuted it. I unmuted it.
I'm going to put in some of these Concord numbers here. And then we saw Cindy in Ward 6. The Goodlander numbers are pretty wild. Interesting to note that Joyce finished a solid second in Newmarket, and that's the town, that's John's hometown. He won that. But it's interesting to see in towns like that, among the two likely, finalists here, chief competitors, who is picking up net votes, even in the towns like that where neither of them are going to end up winning. One of the first towns always to come in is Peterborough, which I think if Cindy's going to have any chance, that's the kind of town she needs to do well in. And she did do pretty well in it. She won Peterborough 55 to 38%. And Kuiper again with a respectable 7%. There we go. We're getting a little action here. I see Catherine Sulfakaitis, one of my favorite people, is on, and we're due to get together soon. And I see Robin Boat. All right, Robin, belated congratulations. You've joined a wonderful family there. So this is what happens. New Hampshire's so small, when everybody got married. Yeah, there's a question about how many of the undeclared or independent voters voted, and what kind of ballots they're taking. We'll be able to parse some of that together as the evening goes on. I mean, one of the things is often you'll have a situation where one party will have all the action on a primary night, and the other party won't really have much at all. And that will draw, not unlike the presidential this past winter, will draw a lot of undeclareds to one side, and a lot of them simply won't bother to re-register undeclared on the way out. And so it begins to muddy up the party registration advantages. In this case, the Republicans at the moment have a pretty significant advantage in party registration entering today, but that's because they had a much more contested presidential primary early this year. Indeed, I saw a fair number of people this morning in Northampton in line that were going back to undeclared, even at 9:30 in the morning this morning. So we'll see what the numbers look like at the end of today. Let's see what other. The Peterborough one is one of the most interesting ones I've seen so far because of its importance. I mean, the second CD one, I've not seen it officially called yet, but I think that's just a matter of time now. There we go. We're getting some more Concord numbers now. You can see there Ward 10, and Cindy, again, she clobbered that one, and that one actually with a pretty good margin. That's the kind of margin she needs to be able to hold down the advantage Joyce would have coming out of Manchester. And then we have in Concord Ward 9, boy, another one. Maggie, 334 to 198 in Concord Ward 9. Now we have Ward 9 for the gubernatorial. Cindy again. That's a much closer one. She's looking for margin. She needs margin out of Concord. One of the things that we're seeing early on the Republican side, I know we're not going to focus quite as much on that tonight, but one pattern that you might expect to see, and it looks like early on we are seeing it, is that in the more Democratic communities in New Hampshire, Kelly should be absolutely clobbering Chuck Morse. So, for example, so far in the Concord wards that have come in, it looks like Kelly is ahead almost 3-1 over Chuck in that Republican gubernatorial primary. Chuck Morse, if you've been following it at all, has really been trying to push his chips into the table as the MAGA candidate, which has always been an uncomfortable place for him to make that pitch. And I think that he has. It's just he never looked comfortable doing it. And certainly in the more moderate, whatever old school Republicans still exist, that's not their pitch. That's not an attractive look. We're gonna see here, collect some more. Okay, let's see what we got here. And Dave Wasserman, who you may know as the go-to person nationally of calling races, has just called the second CD primary for Maggie Goodlander. So when Dave Wasserman says he has seen enough, that means enough has been seen. So congratulations to Maggie Goodlander, who, frankly, I think it's fair to say at the beginning of this process, most people, regardless of how they may have felt about the candidates, probably saw Colin as a significant favorite. He had Annie Custer on his side from the word go. He has run statewide. I think has a strong reputation as a sophisticated politico. and certainly raised the money and did the work. And obviously, that is a pretty dramatic reversal of fortune for him. So, as some have noted, some of the most significant polls in the state, including Nashua, haven't even closed yet. I think this is where some of the numbers that have come in are so dominant that it is, well, at least for these national pundits who do this, they're pretty comfortable calling it. Here we go. Here's an interesting one that's just come in. Epping has just come in. I'm going to share the screen again, and we will we're going to put some more totals on the board here. Epping is in a lot of ways one of the more interesting communities in the state. Certainly for Democrats, it's an important one for any chance of regaining the state house. One of the reddest House districts in the state, where a Democrat won in 2022. Mark Vallone, who is he and his family are an institution in Epping. He was able to win a seat that's a 2-seat district, even though, as you can see, there's a PVI column in this close to the left-hand side of the screen, and the minus sign means Republican. So it's an R 6.38, which is a very Republican number. And yet we have one with kind of a more blue-collar message and ethos type candidates. So it is interesting to see what kind of candidates at the top of the ticket tend to do better in primaries. And in this one, Joyce defeated Cindy 301 to 210, although John Kuiper, who was running as a blue-collar candidate and certainly had the blue-collar vibe going, he did okay. He got 96 votes there. There were also 5 write-ins, according to this, which is interesting. And so that may provide a window into how some of these very red commuter zone towns, and I know we have a few people on this in the chat who live in that area. So I would expect, some of the towns there we're gonna see those numbers start coming in. They won't be big numbers in terms of their democraticness, but some of these are pretty big towns, and so the raw number of votes, even though they're Republican towns, it's enough votes that if one of the two candidates is consistently winning these commuter zone red towns, that's going to add up and provide some margin when we get to some of the blue towns. And Joyce, with that early win, Epping, one of the first communities that reflect that commuter zone. There we go. We have another ward of Concord in. Ward 1. And another win for Cindy. 262 to 196. John with 42. Again, that's a solid win as a percentage, but we're looking for margins. And that's when we're going to keep paying attention to here. Looking for more. Concord Ward 1, although let's see what we have here. Maggie, this was a more narrow win for Maggie in Ward 1 of Concord, 282 to 221. And most of the rest of Concord is now coming in the governor's race. No surprise, Cindy 181 to 141 with Kuiper getting 26. And in the congressional, Maggie again, this time literally more than doubling up Colin in Ward 3, 236 to 116. Yes. I don't know if this is actually true, but if it is true that as Orange goes, so goes the nation, this would be good news for Colin. Orange is a tiny town in Grafton. There were only 34 votes cast in Grafton County, in the town of Orange in 2022. There were 39 of them cast tonight, and Colin won that very small town, 28-11. All right, back to numbers. Maybe about to fill out Concord here. Concord Ward 4, Cindy, 386 to 253, 40 votes for John there. And Maggie, once again, we're now at a point here where the margins are pretty consistent. Maggie, 429 to 229.
And the commission major funding was provided. The corporation bought up.
Is there a new episode of Spotlight?
No, that's also gonna be tomorrow. Yeah, both. There should be one that's available today for only murders in the building or that was
We finished the first episode? We did, didn't we?
yeah.
Uh-oh.
What was it called?
I
Murders
think
Only
we
in
may
the
have
Building?
somebody with their
Only
mic on.
murders in the building.
Only Murders in the Building. Oh.
Interestingly, NHPR and different sources are getting vote totals at different paces. But for the first time tonight, NHPR has Joyce nudging into the lead as more of Manchester is coming in. I should have those numbers shortly. It currently has her up 45-44 with Kuiper at about 10.5%. Probably a big chunk of that is because Newmarket came in pretty early. Let's see what we got here. Interesting. Conway has come in, and Conway, that is Joyce, 434 to 350. That's about a 53 to 43 win. And one of the bluer towns, certainly in the northern part of the state. We're going to plug that one in. somebody somebody just commented the Sox are in the background because Syracuse doesn't play until Saturday. Christine, that's somebody after my own heart. Syracuse football 2-0 to start the season. I don't have high expectations, but I'd like a bowl game. And you're right, we got to wait till the weekend for that. Although lately I've been following all the Indiana Fever games. I have Indiana Fever, and Caitlin Clark has been remarkable. So I actually watched some of her game instead of NFL football Sunday afternoon. If you haven't caught Caitlin Clark and her teammates, it's worth the watch. They are awesome, and I think there are a lot of people tuning into the WNBA for the first time. And Chuck Morse has just conceded, so not a big surprise there. But I think the margin may have genuinely disappointed Morse and some of the more MAGA movement type folks that were hoping to send Kelly Ayotte a more direct message. Interesting. We were talking about the tiny town of Orange in Grafton County. Colin won it 28-11, his first win of a precinct tonight. Oddly, and I've just looked at this to confirm, actually, there was a mistype in the thing. So it was 28-12, Colin, but it was 28-11, Cindy, and virtually identical vote total. John did not get any votes there. Interestingly, and it's been hard to get these so far tonight, but I have the first numbers to plug in for the Executive Council 2 race. That's the Karen Leod Hill, Mike Liberty election. And in that one, there were 40 votes cast. Whoops, I'll have to fix that. And it was Karen won that one, 28-12. So very small. But if you're looking for some little rays of insight as to how that important race might go, a nice early data point for Karen there. We got Ward 8 of Concord now, 249 for Cindy, 190 for Joyce, 52, pretty similar pattern there. The Associated Press at 8 p.m. called it for Kelly Ayotte, and the AP at 8 o'clock also called Maggie Goodlander the winner. So now the AP has officially done both of them. We'll keep track a little longer on some of the raw numbers for the CD2, although it's officially academic. And you can see Ward 8, 334 to 157 for Goodlander. We're going to go back here for a moment and see if we can find. Yeah, I'm seeing some questions about other precincts. I'm increasingly very interested now in these down ballot races, especially as the congressional race has been called. Let's see what we can find here. It's one of the redder towns in the entire state is Ossipee. And again, there are not a ton of votes to be had, but every little bit counts when you're just chipping away at this town by town. And in that one, it was a 47 to 41% margin. Joyce Craig narrowly winning there. We got 2 more blanks in Concord. We're about to fill one of them up. This one, Joyce Craig with 173, but Cindy winning with 243. John with 43 votes there. To 139. That's pretty tough for Colin in Ward 2. Somebody asked about Durham. Let's take a look. Let's see if we can find Durham here. Interesting. All right. So it doesn't look like we have Durham yet, but we have Lee, which is right next door. Interesting. According to the AP, this may not be the full vote total. If it's not, we're not going to put it in yet. I'm going to look at how many votes were cast in Lee. And there were 510 votes cast. So this looks pretty darn final to me. And it was, yes, Cindy. Cindy by a nose in Lee. She wins it 305 to 300. Interestingly, John Kuiper, 149 votes. That's a pretty nice percentage for John in the town of Lee. And it does, of course, that's pretty close to Newmarket. And one could see that he might have done pretty well in his neighborhood. Brentwood is in. Now we're getting to more of the commuter zone. 212, 159 for Joyce over Cindy. That's about a 12-point margin there. Put that one in, 212 to 159 to 57. What we're going to see, the pattern we're going to be looking for here, one theory of the case is that Cindy's strength would be in the western part of the state. Of course, she's represented much of the western and typically bluer part of the state over the last few years. You might recall her district got redrawn up, and so she's represented two different swaths, blue swaths of the state. One that was very east-west and included some of the towns like Durham in that neighborhood, and then got redrawn to go more north-south and catch much of Cheshire County, Grafton County, some of the more Democratic parts of Sullivan County, and so forth. So her theory of the case is that she is represented. She has been on the ballot once and in some cases twice in some of the bluest communities in the state, which in a primary would obviously prove to be very beneficial. So we are looking to see, and then Joyce should do a little better in the commuter zone part of the state. That would be the theory. This is an interesting one. Meredith, Cindy narrowly winning, 281 to 262. That's one that, frankly, I'm not sure anybody would have had a good feel for where that was going to go entering election night. So, go. $281, 262. John with 57. A town that we would expect Cindy to do well in, Plymouth, very blue town, becoming one of the most reliably Democratic communities in the state, and part of her redrawn district, her current district, and she did win it 54 to 37%. So she wins Plymouth by a solid margin. It's about a 100 vote raw vote margin. Which, as we go deeper into the night, that's really going to be what you're going to be paying attention to more than the percentages. And John with 53 votes there. Plymouth is a D plus 13. It's now one of the most Democratic communities in the state. There were 440 votes cast in Plymouth in 2022. Not for nothing, but close to 600 votes were cast in 2024. So pretty significant bump from there. I think for Cindy to be successful, she needs good turnout in places like Plymouth. So looking at that number, she would have to be feeling pleased, not just that she won it, that's expected, but that she won it and that the turnout was very good there. Okay, one of the most important Democratic primary towns in New Hampshire has come in, Hanover. And this is a critical town for Cindy. And she won it, but if you're Joyce, you got to feel pretty good because it was only 868 to 707. So as good as Cindy might have felt about the turnout in Plymouth, interestingly, the turnout in Hanover is lower than it was in 2022. And I'm speculating, but that may have come out of Cindy's hide a little bit because I would have expected that margin of victory to be more significant. So we'll keep an eye on that. One problem when you're sorting for the town of Hillsborough is you get all the counties, the towns that are in the counties of Hillsborough. The town of Hillsborough has come in, and Joyce has won that one decisively, 323 to 155. To give you context, she just more than cleaned out the margin of victory that Cindy had in Hanover with her victory in the town of Hillsborough. That's why I think Cindy's got to be a little concerned about that total. The city of Lebanon has come in now, another critical community. I have them divided by wards, but for the purpose of our exercise, I got it citywide. So I'm just going to put them all in Ward 1. Cindy won it. She won it by a little bit more the kind of margin that she probably was looking for in Hanover. She won it 973 to 699. That's probably a little bit more like it. You can see it's pretty big turnout. We talked about Lee. Littleton has come in. Littleton, again, also in Cindy's backyard. She needs this. She won it. The margin's a little, and again, I think if you're Cindy, you're always pleased to win the town, but I think you'd want those margins bigger there. Another town in Cindy's district has come in, the town of New London, which has become one of the more reliably Democratic communities in that entire part of the state. It's about a D+9. And I'm going to try to get the executive council numbers on that one as soon as I can, because that's a pretty important chunk for that EC2 district. But as it relates to the governor's race, 479 for Cindy, 362 for Joyce, 51 votes for John Kuiper. There's a question about turnout in our chat, and I think it's fair to say, and of course we got a lot of data points to go here, but it seems that it is, I would guess it's probably somewhat higher than what the Secretary of State had projected, about 104,000 Democratic ballots to be selected, picked up. If I had to guess today, I think that number might be a little higher than that. 2020 was a record. 2018 was a record year because of the first post-Trump election women voting en masse in primaries. I know I was involved in that primary. I remember it well. And then 2020 saw record turnout because of the large number of absentee ballots, which we see now. 2022, we saw a reversion back closer to quote normal because of the reduction in the number of absentee ballots. So we'll have a better idea as more of these towns come in. Let's see, we got a Newmarket in here. We're going through. Let's see. Let's go see some other towns here. Let's see if we can find some other towns. Okay, Nashua is not all in yet. Let's see here. Yes, Seabrook. Seabrook, the 106, 128, 44. Wow. Okay. So this is another example, even though Seabrook is on the seacoast, it is much more of a commuter zone town. It's a blue collar commuter zone town. There's some good, a great Democratic committee there that's doing the kind of work that can help change that over time. But for now, it remains a very red town. It's a D plus 10.7, by far the reddest town that touches the coastline. And Joyce crushed that one. She won that one more than 2-1, 306 to 128 in the town of Seabrook. Again, those margins matter. Confirming that. Okay. Well, here's one of the closest ones of the night. Farmington has come in. Farmington, very red town again. And this one is kind of bucking the pattern that we've seen so far tonight. Usually in these more overtly red towns, Joyce has won them. You often have seen this when you have a Manchester-based candidate. They tend to do a little bit better in the more blue collar and often redder towns. This is a very red town, but Cindy won it. She won it narrowly, 153 to 148. John Kuiper with a solid 57 in the town of Farmington. Portsmouth has come in. I know it well, was the mayor there many a year ago. And I only have the citywide total, so I'm just going to put that in Ward 1. And Joyce won Portsmouth 1577 to 1317. Joyce had some very good infrastructure in terms of some of the leadership there. Frankly, so did Cindy. It's a pretty close result. You can see it's one of the bigger communities in the state in terms of the vote. It was 0.5% of the entire turnout in 2022 for governor. So it's not nothing. But the margin ended up being relatively close, but favoring Joyce. So we're looking here for more towns. I think we've got the town of Plymouth already. One note, we haven't mentioned the CD1 GOP primary tonight, with at least 3 candidates that smart Republicans I've talked to have said could conceivably win. You got Joe Kelly Levasseur. Any of you who've spent time in Manchester know Joe Kelly. He is a provocateur who also tends to overperform politically in Manchester. He's spent virtually no money on advertising in any way. And but Manchester is such an important part of CD1 that it could keep him in the ball game. Manchester votes appear to have been counted, and he is leading 26%. Holly Novoletsky at 24% from Gilmanton Ironworks fame. And then Russell Prescott from my neck of the woods here towards the seacoast. He has run for a lot of things, kind of the social conservative, solid as you're going to get, not spectacular, but very predictable, generally well liked by the Republican base. And it is very narrow. There's less than 500 votes separating first from third place. And there's a lot of vote left out there. I think that may be the one that's going to take the longest to count tonight. But of course, I'm quite confident that Chris Pappas, who's of course already been declared the winner of his primary, I'm confident Chris Pappas, probably the best politician in New Hampshire. He transcends partisan affiliation better than any other politician in New Hampshire, certainly on the ballot this year. The town of Sandborton, Belknap County, it's an R+7. Cindy with a narrow win there. She won that 147 to 132. Kuiper with 29 votes in that one. The town of Raymond has also come in. Definition of commuter zone town, deep red, R+11 district, community rather. Joyce, this is kind of the pattern. Joyce won that one 296 to 186. It kind of rhymes with what happened in Seabrook. That doesn't really surprise me. She won in Seabrook by a similar kind of margin. The town of Ware, which is a lot of these super red towns. This one's not so much a commuter zone town. Again, Joyce winning this by a significant margin, 369 to 209, with Kuiper getting 72 votes. That's the town of Ware. We're going to go back to the map. You can see here the NHPR count. I'm going to try to get the towns on this. Shows Karen Leod Hill up 56-44 over Mike Liberty with a little more than half the vote counted. I think obviously what's going to be really important there is getting some insight about what towns have been counted. I will probably be digging for all that during the debate tonight, which of course starts at 9 o'clock. We'll come back on at 10:30, and by then we should have most of these numbers in. So I'm going to spend some time trying to get the down ballot stuff. But it looks like Hanover and Lebanon are in. Karen obviously would have to do very well there as the former mayor of Lebanon, resident of Lebanon. Mike Liberty, a newcomer to politics here in New Hampshire, spent a significant amount of money after a successful career in the tech industry. And so that one was definitely an example of deep roots in New Hampshire politics with Karen Leod Hill versus significant resources and aggressive paid media campaign with Mike Liberty. We'll see what role gender plays in that primary. We know that traditionally, certainly since 2018, when you have a one-on-one Democratic primary with no incumbent, with a woman versus a straight white guy, there have been many examples of that nationally between Congress, governor, and U.S. Senate since the 2018 race cycle, rather. And the win percentage for women in those races is well north of 90%. And you saw tonight, Maggie Goodlander absolutely thrashing a very strong candidate in Colin Van Ostern. So, the pattern appears to continue to hold. If it does, that would bode well for Karen Leod Hill tonight. It looks like with all of Concord in, we can go now to that interesting state Senate race. We have Concord in. I only have the citywide, but for our purposes, that's going to be fine. I am going to put that in here. You can see we've got that all the way to the right. Here's what we got for Concord. Angela Brennan, 1,144. Whoop, I'll have to turn that number from a percentage. Rebecca McWilliams, 2,425. Tara Reardon, 2,709. I have to say, most people, I was in last week talking to some people in the expect Rebecca to have done that well. That's a very, very impressive number. And we're down. We've got Hopkinton and Bo left. So that margin is close enough that it's not over. It looks like Angela Brennan, she may do relatively well in Bo and Hopkinton. She represents Bo in the legislature, but the race there now is going to be, can Rebecca McWilliams make up some ground against Tara in the two non-Concord towns in that district? But if you're Rebecca McWilliams, I think you got to feel pretty good about that. That's an impressive number. Tara Reardon, very impressive candidate, deep roots. Here we are. We have East Kingston, another very Republican town. And that has come in, and it has Joyce getting 80 votes, Cindy getting 72, and 28 votes for John Kuiper. Interestingly, that should be a town that Russell Prescott and his race should do well in. And I'm just looking, I have the totals there, even though we're not keeping close track. And Prescott did his job there. He got 189 votes. Novoletsky got 108. See, Joe Kelly Lavasser is going to crush it in Manchester, but he's going to struggle outside. He spent no money. He only got 29 votes. So Prescott with a 160 vote margin coming out of the town of little town of East Kingston. That's a town that Chuck Morse needed to do well in. And Kelly won it outright, 263 to 170. So that just gives you an idea. Chuck just didn't have, really didn't have anywhere to go. Now we're going to go back. Back to the map here. Let's see what we can find. We're going to look at some more governor's races. With Concord and Manchester in, Joyce only has about a 1-point lead. There's a lot of Western New Hampshire that is not in yet. But there's also a lot of the commuter zone that's not in yet. And towns like Salem, we don't think of those as important in a Democratic primary like this, but they are. And well, here's an interesting total that's come in. The town of Guilford has come in, and Cindy kind of crushed that one. 402 to 214. That's a nearly 30-point margin of victory. That's, again, not huge votes, but we're looking to accumulate. If you're either of these candidates, you're looking to accumulate margin of victory. And so on that one, that's a nice one in Cindy's column. 402 to 214 for Cindy Warmington in the town of Guilford. Meanwhile, the CD2 Republican primary is going back and forth, mainly between Tang Williams and Vikram Manchuramani. I think that one's going to be going down to the wire, and the geography of that one's kind of funky too. So I think we're going to have to pay close attention to how that goes. Let's see here. Okay, here's an example of a red town, not a lot of votes. Joyce narrowly winning the town of Belmont, basically a suburb of Laconia. And that's another town we can plug in here. And let's see here. Eight, okay. Haven't seen much from Coos County yet, although I'm starting to see some Republican numbers coming in from there. So I would anticipate we're going to see some of these Democratic numbers shortly. Again, not a lot of votes. Well, you know what? Here's Berlin. We got Berlin, and Berlin used to be a much bigger percentage. The community itself was bigger, and it was much more democratic. Obviously, the politics have changed significantly. Trump accelerated those changes. He's not the cause of them. And Joyce probably expected to win that, and she did. Put that in. That is by far the biggest chunk of votes that's going to come in from Coos County tonight. And Joyce wins that 234 to 284. But I think if you're Cindy, you have to feel reasonably good that you kept the raw vote margin to only about 50 for Joyce in that town. That's probably pretty good news for Cindy. The tiny town of Carroll, our second Coos County town tonight to come in, and Cindy winning that one, I believe. Yeah, that is part of her executive council district. So probably not a big surprise. It's also one of the most bellwether little towns in the state. It's an R plus half a point community. So we shall see how much of a bellwether. Interesting. The town of Newfields is coming. This is a pretty important one. Frankly, in this primary, it's probably a more important one for the Republicans. That's also one of the few places that had a truly competitive primary for state rep on the Democratic side. 4 candidates for 3 seats. Ellen Reed was the big winner there, 181. Michael Cahill with 159. He is an incumbent there as well. And then Layla Porter Love, who is the I guess you could say kind of the newbie there, 132, and then Tony Weinstein got 121. So pretty tight. And that one's going to come down to Newmarket. I'll be very curious to find those totals a little bit later. But in the town of Newfields, Joyce wins Newfields, the home of Maggie Hassan and Chris Sununu. Joyce 177. Kuiper finishes second with 77. It's next door to Newmarket. Warmington with 76. So Joyce comes out with a 26 vote margin coming out of there. So we got that in the books. Yes, got a question from Don. About the PBI. The PBI helps put that in the chat. Had a question about how the PBI works. Let's see here. Looking for more totals. I have a Laconia total here, but I got a feeling it is not the full, so I'm gonna wait a little while before putting that in. It looks close. Um, the town of Antrim has come in out in western New Hampshire. It's one of the westernmost towns in Hillsborough County. Also, another one of these very neutral. It's an R plus 8/10 of a point, so it's very close. In that one, in this primary, Joyce ended up victorious. That's an example of a town that I would have had a hard time having a good handle on prior to the totals coming in. I could have seen that one going either way. It's funny, you could see that in the media, on Twitter and other places, results are slowing down a little bit as people are beginning to settle in for their jobs as it relates to the presidential debate, which begins shortly, and we'll take a break at 9 o'clock, and I'll keep doing the numbers and have an ear on the debate, and then we'll come on back at 10:30, and by then it'll be more of a recap. We'll probably know a winner, although this governor's primary is pretty close. So we may be counting votes deep into the night. And that means that even little towns like Fitzwilliam might matter. Fitzwilliam is a leaning Republican town. It's been moving in a Republican direction. Right now, it's an R+1. Let's see here what we had in this primary. I've been scribbling my stuff down everywhere. Where is that? Fitzwilliam, just had it. There it is. 95, 85, 17. Cindy narrowly winning, and I would expect her to win that. It's not in her district. It's actually in District 5. We'll also check on District 5's Executive Council primary during the debate, so we should have some really good numbers on that by the time you return. Let's see. Let's go look down for a moment. Let's see at some of the down ballot races that we've been talking about. Here again, I'm going to try to get the town by town info early on with about a quarter of the vote in. Melanie Levesque in the Executive Council District 5 primary with a substantial lead, 58-42 lead. But again, so much of that is what towns are included in that total. So we'll endeavor to get some of that going. Certainly by the time you return, if you are invigorated by the debate that starts shortly. You can see here with about a third of the vote, NHPR, anyway, or Associated Press rather, that Kelly Ayotte has already been declared the winner with about a 38-point lead over Chuck Morse. You can see right now Joyce with a small lead that she's been maintaining for most of the night. It's been widening a little bit. Again, Manchester is all in, Concord. Let's see here. I want to double check to make sure that all of this vote is in. We have a Nashua total. Obviously, that's a big deal. I think Joyce was expected to win Nashua, and so this is a really good example of margin mattering a lot. So let me take a look at Nashua. We've got some good friends from Nashua on the live feed. Yeah, that's not a total. That's not a complete total. So I'm going to wait on that. I'm pretty confident there's some Nashua vote not in that total, and I don't even know what wards would be part of that. So we're going to play that safe. Exeter. Exeter's an important town. It has become a dominant Democratic town. It was once the birthplace of the Republican Party, and good luck to any Republican trying to win in Exeter nowadays. According to this, 1308 to 697, that's a nearly doubling by Joyce Craig. And that's a big deal. And that probably would explain why her lead had bumped out from about 1 to a couple of points. That's one of the bigger towns in the state, and certainly in a Democratic primary, it is one of the most important towns to do well in. And Joyce seemed poised to win that. That margin may be a little bigger than I would have anticipated. So we'll see how that goes. But we're going to put Exeter in, and that's a big win for Joyce. My current town of residence, Northampton, has come in. It is quickly moving in a Democratic direction. Used to also be pretty Republican. This was a town that I thought Kuiper might actually be able to do reasonably well in, and he got 9%. Joyce ended up winning by about 6 points in Northampton. So far, her numbers in the Seacoast are pretty solid, and they probably need to be to help balance out some liability she might have in Western New Hampshire. 256, 225, 49 for John Kuiper. And then we're looking here for more totals. Again, in a little less than 10 minutes, we'll go off for a little while to let everybody go and watch the debate. And I'll keep an ear on it, but we'll focus. We'll make sure we're getting as many of these numbers in as the debate is going on.
If you're just joining us, I was
Durham.
National Constitution Center started tonight's debate, now about 10 minutes away.
And I'm Jonathan Fallon here with Mary Bruce and Rachel Scott. The candidates are just off the stage, ready to walk out. They are in your hold rooms, just minutes from making that walk. Monty, you've been backstage at this moment.
It's stressful, but it's also that time you just say, this is go time. You get in your zone. I'm sure the nominees, the candidates right now are thinking the same thing. They've studied, they're going to go out.
Oh, I think somebody has the debate on their television.
Who has been there both debating Donald Trump and helping him prepare for general election debates, the former governor of New Jersey, Chris Christie. So
there we go. Durham is in. Somebody asked about Durham. Cindy won Durham. I would say that's expected. On one level, it's a Seacoast-centric community, and Joyce has shown strength in a lot of the Seacoast towns. But Durham was part of Cindy's executive council district prior to the redistricting in 2021. And so it was going to be interesting to see how that might balance out. Also, it is a neighboring town in Newmarket, which is the strength for John Kuiper, a resident and former elected official in Newmarket. And so that was kind of interesting. And Cindy won it, but only by about 146 votes. I definitely think this is one example where John Kuiper's presence in the race probably cost Cindy votes. 190 votes is not nothing, and I would be surprised if a good chunk of those wouldn't have gone to her otherwise. So in a super tight race, that might matter a lot. We'll see what happens. We're getting more Seacoast in now. The Seacoast numbers seem to be coming in pretty quickly now. And we have Greenland, which is a suburb of Portsmouth. And it, like much of the evening, Joyce winning by a solid victory. In most of these seacoast towns, she won. Greenland 257 to 223 by consistently just picking up some margin, just keep plugging away, and perhaps that is what she's doing, and what is proving to be a competitive night. Here we go. Bo is coming, and expected Cindy to do well there. She did do well there. She won 51-41. It's a solid win. Actually, probably means that we could find the state Senate primary data there, and that would probably be decisive. Rebecca McWilliams would have to win Bo by a decent percentage margin in order to make up enough gap to have a chance of catching up to Tara Reardon. Otherwise, Tara's gonna end up holding on and being the nominee, and then she will be the prohibitive favorite in the general. That's one of the most Democratic state Senate seats in the entire state. So you can see there, Cindy wins Bo 616 to 499. Bo is, once upon a time was Republican, is now a D+3 and is, galloping in a Democratic direction now. Some of these multi-ward precincts that are big by New Hampshire standards, but we're going to have to see during the debate if all the wards are in. You can see Dover, Cindy with a very narrow victory over Joyce. I don't know if all the votes are in. Rochester, Cindy, a little bit bigger percentage margin, but it's a smaller town, so it's a very similar number. Somersworth, Joyce winning Somersworth by 20. I think there's some votes still hanging out over there. Laconia, Cindy with a narrow lead. Looks like we still got some wards there. A lot of vote out there. Well, Albany is in, so now we know. In Carroll County suburb, if you want to call it that, of Conway, Joyce Craig wins at 33 to 25. Well, here's what I'll say. As I see that we are just about at 9 o'clock, I will invite everybody to go to your TVs or your mobile devices, however you're going to consume the debate. I am going to try to have the debate on in the background. I will accumulate a lot of these numbers. And then at 10:30, or right after the debate's over, I'll come back on. Any of you that are night owls, by then we should have some pretty good results. I will try to get down ballot as well, and then we can go from there. So thanks for sticking around for this. If you come across any data or you have any questions, you can shoot me an email through the website. You can also, I think if you message me through this, I may keep it on. But at any rate, or accumulate your questions, enjoy the debate, and then if you're inclined, we will see you again at about 10:30 tonight.